The Chesapeake Shakespeare Company Education Program is pleased to present this primer for students and teachers watching Romeo and Juliet. Our theater is located in downtown Baltimore, and our indoor space is a thrust-style performance space, which means that the audience in our theater sits on three sides of the action. As a result, no seat in our theater is further than 25 feet away from the performers on stage. And the various viewpoints in the theater make watching even the same play quite different from different points of view. Romeo and Juliet was added to our permanent matinee roster in 2015. Since then, we've offered Macbeth for high school students in the fall. We've added Christmas Carol to our student matinee program. It is the one show where we consistently use young performers. We do a wide variety of plays at Chesapeake Shakespeare: musicals, comedies, tragedies, and history plays of Shakespeare. As a theater company, we frequently use the same performers, allowing those performers to expand their artistic range by playing different roles in different genres. All of our performances feature pre-show music that is sung and performed by members of the ensemble that you will see in that performance. Our actors also greet the students as they enter the theater and obviously interact with them after the show as well. As you are preparing to both watch and listen to the play, it's important to realize we are doing theater based on text. Shakespeare's text begins with a prologue spoken by simply the chorus, which in our productions sometimes have been one person, sometimes the entire company. The major themes from the play emerge, as well as the sense of the theatrical. Two households both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. This opening piece of poetry, a sonnet, 14 lines, has the major themes clearly articulated at the end of each line. Mutiny, unclean, foes, life, overthrows, strife. The major theme of the play, love and rage, are offset in the sonnet as well, and we also hear of parents and children. Again, the deliberate theatricality, the 2 hours traffic of our stage. And finally, a plea for you to listen attentively. With patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. The Chesapeake Shakespeare Company production from 2017 uses the entire ensemble for the chorus. Listen carefully to the words, and then also where the actors are placed when they say the words. For instance, when Romeo and Juliet say that a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, they're in the same position that they'll be in the party scene later in the play. As well, when Benvolio steps between Tybalt and Mercutio, this is foreshadowing the events of 3-1. The play opens. Immediately there is violence. One of the things that you are watching for, of course, is the status of the characters. Who are these people in relation to one another? Notice that the minor characters, or characters of lesser stature, might just be dressed in vests, while characters of higher status, or perhaps more rich, they will have outfits that are different. Longer gowns, for instance, for Lady and Lord Montague and Capulet. Notice that they bring in broadswords in their section. As the prince divides the two families and tells them the stakes at the beginning of the play, we know that if there is further violence, there will be consequences levied by the Duke. Notice the color of the Duke's costume in relation to all of the other characters in the play. We stay in the same location, but now we have our first title character in the play make their appearance, Romeo. There is back and forth between them when he calls Benvolio "cuz." This will fall into our family theme in the play. We now know that they are of the same world, same family, because of their costumes, and a simple stool represents outdoors. Removing the stool means we're in a new location, now in the Capulet house, as Paris comes to inquire about Capular's daughter, Juliet. So we've named the second title character in the play. We now have one of the clown characters in the play. Peter, servant to the Capulets, is given the errand of delivering the list of names of people that are at the party. One of the things that Chesapeake Shakespeare values is the relationship between the actor and the audience. And so Peter is the first character that can directly engage with the audience. This makes every performance new, because how the audience reacts to Peter and how he reacts to that particular audience will vary at every performance. Frequently in Shakespeare there is a mistaken letter. Romeo and Juliet is no different. Benvolio and Romeo coming to the party. We meet Juliet through first her mother and then her nurse, who are both referred to by those names in the scene. Juliet has very little to say in the first scene of the play, but notice how we have distinguished this as a location by using, instead of a simple stool, now a small chaise. Prior to the party scene, we meet the young men going to the party, and we meet Mercutio for the first time, who has to convince Romeo to attend that night's events. The scenes with the young men all feature some form of horseplay, which will have drastic consequences in Act 3, Scene 1. Inside of the party, the lighting allows us to split and see Romeo referring to Juliet dancing, and then later in the exact same scene, to see Tybalt, his opposite on the Capulet side, then seeing Romeo. We have seen how Lady Capulet deals with her daughter. Now we meet Lord Capulet dealing with his nephew, Tybalt. This is a heated exchange between the two men. But the purpose of the scene is for both Romeo and Juliet to meet. They are meeting in roughly the same location that they were seen in the prologue. This scene is usually staged this way every year. Here is a still from the year we first produced the show indoors, and then this is a still from 3 years ago. The two title characters meet and exchange in words to one another what amounts to a sonnet. They finish each other's thoughts, finishing each other's rhymes, and pick up on the words that each other uses. The playwright is showing how the characters are meant to be together. Notice the rapid shift of lights from when they kiss to then when the whole lights come on at the party and they must part. One of Juliet's last lines in the scene, she mentions marriage, but in relation to Romeo. We change locations. This begins the scene outside of Juliet's balcony. Obviously, the mood has to be nighttime, and we have Benvolio and Mercutio making fun of Romeo for leaving the party, and think that he is off trying to woo Rosaline. However, Romeo has stayed behind. Quite literally in this scene, we are using light, a theme in the play, for Juliet to practically carry. So Romeo's line, "What light through yonder window breaks," is literally her holding a lamp as she comes out onto her balcony. This scene probably has more quotes from the play than any other. "What soft, what light through yonder window breaks? O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Good night, parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say good night till it be morrow." Our scene shifts and we meet the friar for the first time. Notice how the lights have gone from something dark and blue to something brighter, and we've added flowers. It's a small moment in the play that the friar decides that he will secretly marry Romeo to Juliet. The friar is one character that goes between Romeo's world and Juliet's world. Romeo, having given the slip to Benvolio and Mercutio, now must say where he was the night before. Another bit of horseplay between the young men, specifically Mercutio's quite bawdy language with Romeo. Notice how Mercutio's costume still keeps him in the world of Romeo and Benvolio, but then there's something different and stylized, specifically with the trousers. Juliet has sent the nurse to arrange the meeting time with Romeo, so the nurse provides a go-between between the two scenes. Each of the title characters has sought out the advice and consent from someone that is not necessarily their father or mother, but yet acts as that role in the play. Notice that when characters make a definitive decision how they feel, then and only then is there close contact between them. As we enter Act 3 of the play, we now have more horseplay between the young men, Tybalt having come to avenge Romeo's presence at the party the night before. Because Romeo is now secretly married to Juliet and therefore is related to Tybalt, he relents in any sort of fight, which causes great shame to his friends. Friendship abounds in this scene as Mercutio seeks to answer the injustice done to Romeo. Benvolio steps into the fight to assist Mercutio, and Romeo steps into the fight to stop Mercutio and his new family, Tybalt, with terrible results. Stage combat scenes at Chesapeake Shakespeare Company are rehearsed, probably more than some text scenes, and before every performance, a fight call is done to refresh the actor's memory. The fight also has to tell the story, and in this particular sequence, it's important to see that Romeo's fighting style is much more loose and impulsive, whereas Tybalt's is very exact and precise. Actors in the company continue to train in different weapons. In this performance, rapiers and daggers are used, but broadswords would be used in Macbeth. Other plays might need hand-to-hand or small sword. The lights at the end of this sequence change quite dramatically. The fate of the two title characters has changed quite dramatically in this particular moment as well. Now the consequences mean that the prince is banishing Romeo. The next two scenes that happen in the play, in our production, have been merged together. Both of the scenes involve the title characters receiving news about Romeo's banishment. The nurse telling Juliet that Romeo is banished for killing Tybalt, Romeo learning of his fate from the friar. The nurse is the one character that bridges these two scenes. The actor playing Romeo shows his impulsiveness and childishness by throwing himself on the floor several points during the play. The idea is that they will consummate their marriage and Romeo will be banished. However, Capulet is deciding that Juliet should marry Paris. Lady Capulet informs Juliet of this, but Juliet refuses. Much of the second half of the play involves Juliet's story more than Romeo's. Asking the nurse if she agrees that she should marry Paris, and then disavowing her relationship with the nurse, so much so that she is prepared to die. Going to the cell to meet the friar, she encounters Paris, who's patiently waiting for their marriage. She threatens death. This closely mirrors the previous scene that the friar had with Romeo, where he threatened death. In both instances, the friar must stop the title characters. How he handles each one, though, is quite telling. With Juliet he is gentle. With Romeo he is much firmer. She agrees to this plan, agreeing that she will go back to her mother and father and concede that she was wrong, agree to marry Paris, but she will take the potion that will put her in the tomb waiting for Romeo. When the family learns of Juliet's death, we in the audience, of course, realize that she is not dead, simply asleep. We have a quick scene in Mantua, with Romeo then receiving the news of Juliet's death and deciding that he will buy poison and go and lie with her in her tomb. We have a brief scene between Friar Lawrence and Friar John, where Friar Lawrence learns that the letters did not get to Romeo. He believes correctly that Romeo believes her dead. We move to the tomb. We use practical lanterns for lighting effects. We open up the trap, where the tomb would be. Romeo and Paris fight, and Romeo then ingests the poison. Juliet will awake. She will find her husband, Romeo, by her side, will seek his poison to drink and die. Finding that empty, hearing a noise, she'll take his knife and stab herself in the heart. At the end of the play, Montague and Capulet must resolve, and the prince finishes the play with the glooming peace that the morning brings. Every year, Chesapeake Shakespeare Company performs Romeo and Juliet, no matter what set it's on, be it Hamlet or be it Henry IV. And we look forward to welcoming you, all of your students, back to Chesapeake Shakespeare when we resume our student matinee program.